Hello, my motor enthusiasts. You're tuned in to F1 Motor Fever podcast.
Enzo, let's talk about the shocker in the Australian Grand Prix, shall we?
Quite right, William. Who would have thought George Russell's pursuit of Alonso would end with such a dramatic crash?
Indeed, it was a heart-in-mouth moment. Russell was giving Alonso a run for his money, wasn't he?
He certainly was. But then the unexpected happened at turn 6. Russell lost control and slid onto the gravel.
Quite a dangerous situation, I must say. Cars whizzing past and Russell's car bouncing back onto the live track.
Absolutely, we heard Russell over the radio shouting, "Red flag, red flag, red flag, I'm in the middle of the track." His frustration and concern were palpable.
And what about the other drivers? How did they react?
Everyone reacted swiftly. Alonso, Stroll, Tsunoda, Hülkenberg, they all had to navigate past the crash scene at reduced speeds.
And the medical car being scrambled onto the track added to the drama, didn't it?
It definitely did. It ran side by side with Oscar Piastri, who thought it was the safety car and decided to follow it to the crash site.
In the end, it was a Grand Prix that kept us on the edge of our seats, wasn't it, Enzo?
It most certainly was, William. A real mix of adrenaline, danger, and relief as no further incidents occurred. But let's delve into the details, shall we?
Absolutely. Let's get into it.
Hey everyone, this is your host Enzo.
And this is your commentator, William, at your service.
We're here, same time every day, on F1 Motor Fever podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Let's go full throttle. I must say, for the second year in a row, the Australian Grand Prix has delivered a dramatic conclusion. This time thanks to George Russell losing control of his Mercedes while chasing Fernando Alonso.
Indeed, the crash was at one of the fastest corners on the track. A dangerous situation that required swift reactions from drivers and race control.
And can we discuss the reactions of the first drivers on the crash scene? They managed to avoid entangling in the crash.
Yes, but the rapid deployment of the medical car seemed to surprise some drivers on track. They weren't expecting it to be there.
I suppose in such situations, quick responses are key, aren't they?
Certainly. As the race was nearing its end, the crash brought an unexpected twist. Alonso must have been taken aback when he realized Russell was no longer in his mirrors.
Right. Soon after Russell's crash, the virtual safety car was deployed, effectively ending the race. Quite dramatic, don't you think?
Quite, but thankfully, Russell reported that he was okay. That must have been a relief for everyone involved.
Unquestionably, the safety of the drivers is always paramount. But let's talk more about how this incident unfolded, shall we?
Absolutely. There's a lot to unpack here. Let's dive in.
And you know, as the world feed footage turned to Russell right after his crash, Lance Stroll was just about to approach the scene. It must have been a stark moment for him, right?
Oh yes, absolutely. I mean, he was merely seconds away from that fast 200 kilometers per hour right-hander when he got an urgent warning from his race engineer, Ben Michel.
I remember that moment. Michel's messages were rather urgent, weren't they? I believe it was his final race working on the pit wall with Stroll.
Yes, indeed. And then we have Yuki Tsunoda, arriving at vastly reduced speeds after the virtual safety car was activated. After passing the Mercedes in the middle of the road, all that mattered to him was Russell's well-being.
It was indeed a testament to the camaraderie between these drivers. To be honest, William, I didn't quite follow. Could you explain that another way?
Of course, Enzo. So basically, after the crash, the drivers coming up behind had to navigate around the crash scene. Tsunoda was the next to arrive after the safety car was activated, and his main concern was whether Russell was okay after such a harsh crash.
Got it. Thanks for clarifying. It shows how quickly situations can evolve during a race. The drivers have to be ready to adapt at all times.
Absolutely. And speaking of adapting, let's talk about Nico Hülkenberg. He was the first to pass the Mercedes on the right-hand side of the track, which appeared to be a bit more challenging than passing on the left.
That's right. And let's not forget about Carlos Sainz Jr., who had already started his final lap of the Grand Prix. He received the virtual safety car signal as he was rounding turn 3 and was instructed to stay to the left of the crashed car when he passed it.
And his teammate, Charles Leclerc, he had just achieved the fastest lap of the race from Lando Norris on lap 56. But that led to some radio confusion with his race engineer, Xavier Marcos Padros.
It's clear that in this sport, a moment's hesitation can change the course of a race. Well, we'll continue to delve into this incident after the break. Don't go anywhere, folks. Continuing our discussion, as the chaos unfolded on the track, several drivers had to react quickly to avoid the debris. Nico Hülkenberg, for instance, had quite the reaction while passing the crash scene, didn't he?
Indeed, it was a scene of shock for many. As the drivers navigated the track, their team radios were buzzing with information and instructions. They had to stay alert for debris while processing their team's instructions.
And Charles Leclerc, after setting the fastest lap, was understandably confused. He was asking about the state of the race and, importantly, about Russell's condition.
That's true. The concern for Russell's well-being was evident amongst the drivers. Even Lando Norris, despite being informed about the possibility of claiming the bonus point for fastest lap, was immediately concerned about Russell.
Safety always comes first in these situations. It shows the camaraderie among the drivers, despite the competitive nature of the sport.
Absolutely. Now, let's shift our focus to what happened next. The medical car was summoned for Russell. Norris's teammate Oscar Piastri was 12 seconds behind when the crash occurred. As he crossed the finish line, the medical car was scrambled directly in front of him.
That must have caused confusion. Piastri assumed it was the safety car, and since he wasn't the leader, he wondered if he should pass the vehicle.
Yes, and it didn't help that the medical car deployed message only appeared on the race control information system a whole minute after the car had left the pit lane. Quite a dramatic set of events, wasn't it?
Indeed. It's a reminder of how every second counts in motor racing, both in terms of competition and safety. Let's delve deeper into this incident after a short break. Stay tuned, folks. Let's continue discussing the aftermath of the crash. As the chaos on the track was unfolding, there were more intense communications between the drivers and their respective teams. Oscar Piastri, navigating the debris and the crashed car, was unsure about overtaking the medical car.
Yes, Piastri's confusion was evident. His team radio informed him to only overtake if he was waved through. But beyond the warnings and the confusion, his main concern was, again, the safety of the fellow drivers on the track.
In the midst of all this, Pierre Gasly had his own concerns. He was due to serve a 5-second time penalty for crossing the white line at the pit exit earlier in the race. Before the virtual safety car was deployed, he was 7 seconds ahead of Valtteri Bottas.
And as Piastri slowed to allow the medical car to reach the crash site, Gasly had to follow suit. This allowed Bottas to close up and put Gasly's position in danger. It must have been quite a tense situation for him.
Indeed, Gasly was unsure if he could overtake the medical car. He was told merely to stay behind Piastri and not overtake. Once again, the concern for Russell was paramount, as Gasly asked about Russell's condition on rounding turn 6.
Yes, these were intense moments, filled with confusion and concern. But amidst the chaos, one driver who seemed to benefit was Kevin Magnussen, who was in the 11th place. The crash suddenly put a double points finish for the team on the horizon.
But like his fellow drivers, Magnussen too was primarily concerned about Russell's safety. It is heartening to see such concern for fellow drivers in these high-pressure situations.
Agreed. It's an apt reminder of the inherent risks in this high-speed sport and the mutual respect and concern amongst the drivers. We'll be right back after this short break to discuss more. Stay with us.
Let's examine the final moments of this dramatic race. As the yellow flags continued to fly, Kevin Magnussen received confirmation that he was in 10th place. His engineer, Mark Slade, guided him through the chaos, warning him to stay left and to be ready for the virtual safety car ending.
Yes, in the heat of the moment, Magnussen even noted himself that there's no way the race would continue with a car in such a condition. His primary concern, like his fellow drivers, was the safety of George Russell.
Indeed, the repeated questions about Russell's condition and safety speak volumes about the camaraderie amongst the competitors. Even in the face of potential points and finishes, their primary concern remained the safety of their fellow driver.
Absolutely, and the relief in the voice of Magnussen on hearing that Russell was okay was quite palpable. It's something the audience don't get to witness often, the human side of these incredibly skilled drivers.
So true, it's these moments that remind us that beyond the high-speed chases, the strategic maneuvers, and the fight for finishes, it's also a sport of respect, camaraderie, and concern for each other's safety. That brings us to the end of our main discussion for today's episode of F1 Motor Fever podcast. We've got a few more things coming up, so stay tuned. William, any interesting chatter on the internet regarding recent events?
Well, let's have a look. A certain D. Rodriguez states, quote, "A message to our fans from team principal Mike Crack," unquote. Apparently the Twitterverse is buzzing about this.
What's the general sentiment?
So here's what Halkatlar says, quote, "People saying they did not appeal just because then Lance would lose the 2 points. They are not appealing because they don't have anything new to offer," unquote.
Quite the assertion that.
And in response, Yeah Perfect suggests, quote, "What about all those fake Twitter graphics showing that Alonso had throttle and brake issues? Can they use those?" unquote. However, Favawire adds, quote, "You have to pick your fights. This Aussie GP for 2 more points is not a hill to die on," unquote.
Quite some food for thought.
One comment I find interesting is by Cripple Slap, who says, quote, "It wasn't an accident. On the very last lap, he suddenly slowed down. You don't drive 23 years in the sport and not know what you're doing. It was very intentional. I just don't think he meant for Russell to crash," unquote.
That's a pretty strong allegation. Any counter-arguments?
Quite a few, actually. Keto at Work and Wycantiusithis generally agree that the incident was unfortunate. Wycantiusithis adds, quote, "Had Russell not crashed, it probably wouldn't have been investigated, but the crash drew attention to the situation. A slightly different execution on Alonso's part or Russell reacting differently would have changed it, but F1 is full of what-ifs," unquote.
That's a fair point. It's easy to be an armchair expert after the event.
And finally, Firefox72 states, quote, "The document clearly explains why he got punished, and the severity of the penalty is explained by the FIA enforcing harsher penalties for everything bar the minute details like pit lane speeding, something the drivers themselves wanted," unquote.
It's good to see some constructive discussion happening. I do hope this brings some clarity and understanding to fans about the complexities of the sport. That brings us to the end of today's exciting episode of F1 Motor Fever podcast. We explored the thrilling and contentious race, dived into the strategy, and discussed the camaraderie amongst competitors. Thank you for joining us on this journey. We hope it's been as fun for you as it has for us. Remember to hit that subscribe button and notification bell so you're always in the loop with us. Share our podcast with your fellow petrolheads on Twitter, Facebook, or during a casual chit-chat. Your interaction is our motivation, so please leave us a comment if you enjoyed the episode.
Absolutely. And don't forget, we're here every day, so if you need a daily Formula One fix, you know where to find us. And if you think today's topic was a scorcher, just wait until you hear what we've got in store. But no spoilers here. You'll have to tune in to find out.
We can't wait to connect with you all in the next episode. Thanks again for your time and for being such a fantastic audience.
Couldn't have said it better myself, Enzo. Right, until next time, folks. Remember, pedal to the metal, keep your gaze on the road. Our channel's content is pure gold.